I'm excited today. I'm excited about the message I've got for you today. God spoke to me this week, and it was exciting. So I'm out of breath. See, I need to start working out. I'm out of breath. I didn't even do nothing. I just high-fived some people. Golly. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I feel like God's moving. I feel like God's doing some things in our lives, not just my life, but your life too, hopefully. It's still, the weeks are going by too fast for me. I looked up yesterday and I thought, man, I don't even have everything together yet. I was like, my goal is to have everything ready by Wednesday, and so far I haven't found it possible. I still work like 10 to 12 hours a day at my worldly job or whatever, my job, and then I come home and I try to put a message together and stuff, and it's cool. I always say I wish I had more time during the day to prepare the message, but like God still speaks to me all day long while I'm at work, and there's opportunities all day to be a Christian. That sounds terrible. There's opportunities all day to let Jesus work through you, and I think we forget that sometimes. So anyway, anybody remember what we talked about last week? Insecurities. All right, awesome. And as I was going through, I realized that I left out one of the main things I was going to say last week. So we're going to pick up at the very end of last week. No, I'm just playing. It was about insecurities. The week before that was about the voices you believe determine your future. And excuse me, goodness. And I believe that. I believe the voices that we buy into, that we start to listen to throughout our daily routine, every single day, it determines the outcome of our day. Sometimes we wake up, oh my gosh, I gotta do this again, gotta get up. And that's the day you have. It turns into be a dreadful day sometimes. And that's it. The voice you believe determines your future. And until we start to believe that and change what we believe and what we listen to, our days and our lives aren't going to change. It's going to stay the same. So, and then we talked about insecurities. We hold back and we do things because of insecurities. And here's my main point. When you doubt the product, you insult the manufacturer. That's good, huh? That didn't come from me. I can't take credit from that. That was another Stephen Furtick line. When you doubt the product, you insult the manufacturer. So when you get stuck in the I can't because, well, see, our God is the I am in your I'm not. So when you start telling yourself that you can't do this and you can't do that and I'm not good enough for this and I'm not good enough for that, well, what you're ultimately doing is you're insult his product. You're insulting God's product. So keep that in mind, because that made a big difference in me when I heard that. When I started talking, and I'd catch myself, I'd say, man, I can't do that. I don't know. And then I realized, well, maybe if I actually tried, maybe if I put some real effort into it, I could. So anyway, today we're going to be talking out of Acts 27. So if you have a Bible, iPad, iPhone, any of the above, no excuses. No, I'm just playing. That's what we're going to be talking out of. And if you don't, we'll have some scripture on the screen, hopefully, if I let everybody know exactly where we're at. I'm also not good at that yet. I just start reading and start saying stuff, and nobody knows where I'm at. And then sometimes I don't even name the books right. So anyway, we're going to be in Acts 27. And what's happening here? Paul's in trouble, okay? Paul's in trouble. Paul is on a ship of, I think, what was it, like 275 other prisoners, or 275 people altogether. And what it is they're sailing to Rome and to face trial before Caesar. And so they're sailing to Rome. That's where we're going to pick up in verse 9. But that's what's going on here. So everybody there, Acts 27 verse 9, we're going to read this real quick. You don't have to read it with me, I'm going to read it to you. It says, much time had been lost, and sailing had already become dangerous, because by now it was after the Day of Atonement. So Paul warned them, men, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to ship and cargo and to our own lives also. But the centurion, the guy that's in charge of the prisoners, instead of listening to what Paul said, followed the advice of the pilot and the owner of the ship, which makes sense. If you're in charge of some people and someone is the preacher that you're in charge of that's in prison or whatever is telling you that it's not a good time to sail, well, of course you're going to take the pilot or the captain's advice versus the preacher, because the preachers think they know everything all the time and they don't. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing. They do know everything. No, I don't know. Sometimes they're wrong, but But listen, this is the point I want to make here. Have you ever found yourself, okay, I think there's a lot of things going on in this story here, so I want to be careful with what I say and how I say it. Okay, this is a ship, okay? This is not a cruise. This is not a Caribbean cruise. They're not on vacation. This is a ship full of prisoners, okay? And they're sailing to Rome to go to trial. And there's one guy, Paul, that warns them that they shouldn't go. Now, what I'm seeing is Paul is that voice of God. He represents that voice of God. He's that one small, quiet voice in the middle of this huge ship of prisoners. Okay? So, God gives a warning. And this is something, I'm going to share a little bit of my own story here. Like, how many, have you ever found yourself in a situation, and I'm going to call it a storm, in a situation to where you're like, how did I get myself into this? And how the heck am I going to get myself out? Anybody? Have you ever been in a situation and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, me too. God gave me a warning a couple of years ago, a very clear warning, and I ignored the warning. Listen, anytime you ignore a warning from God, you're going to suffer loss. Anytime you ignore a warning from God, you're going to suffer loss. Every time. Now, you may survive, but you're going to suffer loss. So Paul gives them this warning. He said, man, I can see that our voyage is going to be disastrous and bring great loss to ship and cargo and to our own lives also. See, a couple of years ago, I heard God tell me very clearly. Me and my wife at the time, we were talking about moving. We were talking about moving to Louisiana for other things or whatever. But what had happened is, God, when I started coming here, God made it very clear to me that I was to serve here, and I was to serve here until further notice. And so I did. I started serving and everything. And then what happened was we started looking at our own circumstance. We started, things started happening. We were concerned about different things, whatnot, whatever. And what happened? Ultimate thing, we bought into the other voice. We bought into that voice that was trying to sneak in. And so anyway, we started planning this move. We started figuring out how to do it and all this and everything. And we had already made the decision. We were real close. It was about that time we were, going to be moving. And God spoke to me one night when I was at work, and He said, if you go, you'll lose your family. Just like that. I was minding my own business, probably doing something on my phone or whatever, not paying attention to anything else. And very clearly, just like that, if you go, you'll lose your family. That's exactly how I heard it. And it was like firm. I knew it was God when He said it. And I was like, what, are you going to kill my family? I don't believe you. That was my reaction. And anyway, I struggled with it for a few days, and finally I said, you know what, that's just fear trying to creep in, and I ignored it, and we moved. I ended up divorced, I ended up losing my kids, and I ended up back here right where I was, where God said to stay and not leave until further notice. It cost me. It cost me big. It stinks not getting to see my girls every day. It stinks. It's terrible. Does anybody relate to this? Does anybody ever found themselves in a situation and you look back and you know very well God said no and you did it anyway? Yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens. That's the title of this today. It's called It Will Happen. It will happen. And that's the thing is we face storms. We go through things. And you know, it'll happen. So anyway, we're going to pick on up in verse 14 if you want to skip down. It says, before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the Northeaster swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind. So we gave way to it and were driven along. They were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Cauda, or whatever, I don't know how you say the word, Cauda, I think. We were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure. So the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis. They lowered the sea anchor to let the ship be driven along. Okay, so I want to paint a picture here for you. I've never sailed anywhere. I've never been on a cruise ship. I've been on a boat a couple of times. I'm not a big fan of being on a boat. I like a boat. I like a barge or a yacht or something like that. I'm not a big fan of a boat. So I've never had a whole lot of experience, but I've flown before. And I used to fly all the time. With my job, I was always flying. And there was one time in particular, we were flying to Oregon, which is odd. Me and my brother, we were flying to Oregon to work, and and I don't remember the town we had to fly to, but it was a small town, and we were actually stuck. Our truck had broke down, and we were trying to fly out of there. That's what it was, sorry. Anyway, we were flying out of this small town. It's in the mountains in Oregon. I want to say it was called Eugene or something like that, and I don't know if that's right or not. But anyway, we were there, and there was a little bitty airport. I mean, I'm talking a little bitty airport, but we didn't realize it was a little bitty. We had booked this flight out because, our truck was going to be in the shop for like a week, so we were going to go ahead and fly home instead of just wasting time up there. And so anyway, we booked the flight and everything. We got to the airport, and we're waiting, and the airport inside, it didn't look much different from Love Field or something. It was pretty good size. And we're in there waiting. It's dark. Our flight, we always booked our flight like really early in the morning. And so we get there, and they start calling our flight, and they tell us to come to this door, and we go to this door, and then they take us down these stairs, and then they take us out onto the tarmac or whatever, and I'm like, where are we going? And then there's this little bitty Matchbox airplane over there, and it has steps to go into it, and it has propellers and everything, and it's it looks like you could hold it. And I'm like, I don't fly well. I used to fly a lot, but I don't fly well. It usually always made me sick. I just would get, motion sickness. Anyway, we get on this plane, and we're sitting there, and they take forever to get that thing going. I don't know if they couldn't get it started. I don't know what the problem was, but we were sitting there forever, it seemed like. And then there's this girl behind us, and she's like, this is my first time to fly, this and that, and I'm thinking, oh, great, and she's all nervous. She was like, what are you doing? What's going on? She's asking all these questions, and my brother, he's a very impatient man. And he turned around and he looked at her, and then he looked at me, and he said, this is going to be a long flight. And he gets his headphones, and he goes, boop. And he always fell asleep. He would always fall asleep before. And my nerves, when we would fly, I could feel my nerves just start creeping up. And Anyway, I can see them. They're out there. They're like looking at the propeller. They're doing something, and they're like, "Try this, try that." And then I'm like thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is not good. This is not going to be good." Anyway, we get in. We finally take off. We finally get in the air. We're going along, and it is the roughest flight ever. And I just knew like I was about to be sick. I knew I was going to be sick. And then all of a sudden, we go through these clouds, and it gets dark. Like it's early in the morning, but it gets dark, and all of a sudden, like it's getting more and more rough. We're like, and they're telling everybody, buckle your seatbelts, make sure your seatbelt. The people are like running back and forth, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is it. We're gonna die. I knew that this was it, and and my brother's over there, asleep, and I'm thinking, this is, and the girl's screaming. She's screaming every time the plane drops. She's screaming, and then like now other people are getting nervous and like. You see where I'm going with this? Like it's just like it starts one little thing and then it just builds and builds and builds. And then I remember one time looking out the window, and I was by the window, and the propeller stopped. And I don't know if that's normal or not, because this is my only time to ever fly on a plane that actually had propellers. And it stopped. And then I realized the clouds were coming toward me. Like we were going sideways. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I think I stopped breathing. Like, because I'm looking and the propeller's not moving, and I'm trying to see if the other one's moving or not. And we're going, and I can tell the clouds are coming up against the window, and you can feel it. You can feel the wind was like pushing us that direction, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember I put my head in my hands, and like I just started, God, please get us to the ground. Please get us to the ground. And I was asking for barf bags. I was telling them, this is not going to be enough. This is not going to be enough. This little bitty lunch sack or whatever. You're going to have to get me like a trash bag, like something big, because this isn't going, I'm telling you, this isn't going to be good at all. And then the girl behind us is screaming and crying. She's just like lost it. The flight attendants are running back and forth. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know. Maybe the pilot passed out or something. I don't know what happened. But anyway, they finally got it under control and landed. And so when I'm reading this, like I feel myself in this situation like, okay, this storm is big. Okay, it described it like a hurricane. They're on this ship and they're in this like hurricane condition, trying to sail, like people are freaking out. Do you understand? Like people are freaking out, and like they're pulling the lifeboat on board or whatever, and then they're running ropes around, the ship to try to keep it together and hold it together because they're afraid it's going to come all apart. And then they said they lower the anchor and they're driven along. They're just driven along. They quit trying to steer and they just let the storm drive them along. How many times has something come up and you suddenly like anxiety starts creeping in, fear creeps in, and you start worrying, and then all of a sudden the next thing you know, your life is being driven by that worry or that fear or that anxiety, and then like it just takes a hold of you. And then what happens is we begin to just live life as though it's normal. And we just go with it. And we start focusing on our circumstances and the things that are going on around us, and we just let that drive us along. We start focusing on the bank account. We start focusing on everything else, and we forget what we're doing. We forget where we're actually going and what we're supposed to do. All right. They were driven along. What drives you? What drives you? What drives you each day? What is it that drives you along? What is it that gets you up in the morning? Job. Yeah. The money. Got to pay the bills, right? How many times have you ever been like, the money's like, you're like, man, I got to get another job. Yeah. All right. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, we let creep in and take over our mind and take over our mindset, and we start focusing on our circumstances. On our circumstances. Like, I don't know if we understand that. We're just driven along. Okay, and we're going to pick up. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, the storm continued raging. We finally gave up all hope of being saved. Okay, this storm is bad. This is rough. If I was on that ship, I would probably already be dead because I'd already thrown up everything that was ever existed. Like, I mean, there wasn't anything left. I'd been, has anybody ever been seasick, been on a ship where it was like a little questionable, or a ride with your friend in your car, in their car, and you're like, oh, dude, you're going to have to slow down. You're making me sick. You ever been in a situation where you're like just being driven along and it's just like, here's the thing. They throw their possessions. They throw the cargo. They throw the tackle. They throw everything overboard. They're doing everything they can to keep the ship afloat. They're doing everything they can to keep this boat from going under. And then, after how many days does it say? Oh, many days. After many days. Have you ever had like a bad day, and that bad day turned into like a bad week, and then a bad month, and you're like, what the is going on? You know what I'm talking about? They gave up all hope. All their stuff is given up just to try to stay alive. They gave up everything they had, all their possessions, to try to stay alive. Does anybody relate to that? You just start selling stuff. You just start getting rid of everything you can just to try to, just pay the lot bill. They've lost complete control, and they're giving up everything in hopes of staying afloat. They went from despair to depression. They've given up all hope of being saved. They've given up all hope that they'll live. They've given up all hope that anything will change before they make it out. Like this story, I feel like he's talking about me. I feel like he's talking about the stuff that I went through. Does anybody else, I feel like we don't get it. Anybody else have that situation? Like when you just feel like there's no hope. I heard somebody talk about depression. And depression in someone is to give up all hope that they will ever feel any different than how they feel right now. Like, I've struggled with depression. I've had depression before. I went through some serious depression. And I remember I just would rather just end it because, I couldn't see how anything could ever change. It's not going to change. It's not going to change, so why keep on? Why keep going? And it drives us. We die more and more, and it destroys not only us, but the ones around us. It destroys our relationships. It destroys our hearts, our homes, our purpose. And before we know it, we've given up completely. Fear has taken over. Depression has taken over. Our circumstances has gotten the best of us. And our focus has shifted completely from God's purpose to what's going on around us. Our focus has shifted from Jesus and our purpose to to the storm. And see, and then how many times do we start praying about the storm? God, just take this storm away. Take me out of this situation. We try to change the storm. But what if it's the focus? What if it's our focus that we need to change and not the storm? Thanks. Whoever that was. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. We let our fears creep in. We let that voice start speaking to us, and before we know it, it's destroyed us. It's destroyed everything. We've given up everything, and we've lost everything, and we don't even know where we're at. We can't see the light of day, and we don't know what's going on, and we're confused, and we feel lost, and we feel like all hope is just gone. What is it that we're focusing on? And in verse 21, the story takes a turn. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice." I know what you're thinking. Wow, he's a woman? I'm just playing. That's a joke. That sounds like, right? What? I mean, come on. You got to agree with me. Men, you should have taken my advice. You should have did what I said to begin with. It sounds just like a woman, right? No, I'm totally playing. I'm totally joking. Come on now. Lighten up. Lighten up. Lighten up. No, I'm just playing. But remember, Paul warned them in the beginning. And he said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. You would have spared your lives. You would have spared yourselves this damage and loss." See, we ignore the warning. "But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed." Guys, there's good news and there's bad news. You're going to be okay. You're going to make it. But this ship, it may not make it. It's going to be destroyed. But here's the thing. He says, keep up your courage. See, we can't tie our courage to our circumstances. Because see, if you do, when your bank account goes down, your courage goes down. When your relationship starts going downhill, your courage goes down. If you tie it to it. And that's the thing, we can't. What's our courage? Our courage, our hope is in Jesus. And that's our courage, is that when Jesus promises us life, that means He promises you life. And when our faith is in Jesus, that's the gift of life. He gives us life. And we keep our courage and we keep our hope and we keep our faith in Jesus. See, we can put our hope in this building. We can put our hope in this building, and if the tithe keeps going the way it's going, we can just close the doors, but that's okay. We can have church in the pasture somewhere. We don't have to have this building to survive. The sound doesn't have to be perfect to worship. Do you realize that? It's okay if the sound don't work. What's the worst thing that can happen? We got some acoustic guitars. Sam sings loud.
Amen.
Do you see where I'm going with this? Like, we don't have to have the stuff. But we think we have to have the stuff. The stuff is not what makes us. And here's something else. We describe blessing like stuff. The blessing is not the stuff. The blessing is that Jesus gives us hope. And when our faith is in Jesus, guess what? You're going to make it. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. It doesn't. The waves of depression and the waves of worry and the waves of fear can crash and they can destroy the boat, they can destroy the home, they can destroy your car, but it doesn't matter. You're still alive and you're going to make it. That's hopeful. That's big. That's big news to me. He says, last night, an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me. Stood beside me. Stood beside me. See, and that's the thing. Like, we may go all the way to the bottom. We may sink all the way to the bottom with the ship. We may go all the way down. But He's right there. And He's going to bring you back up. Last night, an angel of the God whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, don't be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar. Oh, okay, good news. Good news. I'm still going to trial. And God has graciously given you all the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, for I have faith in God that it will happen. That it will happen just as He told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island. It happens. You get it? It happens. The things, the other it happens. It's going to, okay? Like, here's the thing. Hang on before I get ahead of myself. I'm going to make sure I'm... He says, but now, keep your courage. He says, it will happen. See, it doesn't matter what's going on. And it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter how bad the storm has gotten. But now, keep your courage. Change your focus. Don't worry about your circumstances. Worry will eat you alive. Stephen Furtick said it like this: worry has babies. Worry has litters. And then the next thing you know, your worry has taken you on this journey of things that hasn't even happened. You've already what-ifed yourself to death. What if this? What if that? What if this? Well, what if? What if we got to close the doors? What if the money runs out? What if we can't pay the electric bill next month? What if the sound don't work? What if? I don't know if we can all fit in my living room, but we can try. You know what I'm saying? We can fit in somebody's living room if we have to. If that's what we got to do, that's what we'll do. If we got to close the doors, it doesn't matter. That doesn't mean God's changing what He's doing here. It doesn't mean He's going to change how He's going to work in your life. It doesn't mean He's told me that, okay, well, that journey was only a few days long and that's it. No, God gave me a mission. God told me what to do, and He made it very clear to me what to do and how to do it. God made a promise. You're going to make it. You're going to make it. God didn't promise us that it wouldn't hurt. God didn't promise us that it wouldn't sting a little bit. See, God didn't promise us that we wouldn't go through the storm. God didn't say you'll never face a storm. God said, I'll be there when you go. God said He would be there, right by our side. Our hope is in Jesus. See, He didn't promise us the things. He didn't promise us all the other stuff. See, we may lose our car, we may lose the house, we may not have electricity, we may not have things, we may lose our relationship, we may lose our wife, we may lose our husband, we may lose our father, we may lose our mother, we may lose all these things. And I know it hurts. He didn't say we wouldn't hurt. He didn't say we wouldn't cry. He said, I'll hold you when it happens. I'll hold you. And just like that bread, how long has it been? When was the blessed and broken message? Anybody remember? How long has that been? 5 years? 5 years? Just like that bread Chris talked about. When Jesus broke the bread never left his hands. That bread never left his hands. We may break, we may get broken, but we're in his hands. Our life is in his hands. Do you get that? Our life is in his hands. We're in his hands. God promised you life. And when you put your faith in Jesus, and you put your faith and your hope and your courage is in Jesus, the other stuff doesn't matter. It goes away. The storm can rage on. The storm can rage on. I don't have any fear whatsoever that anything is going to happen to this place. I don't have to have this building. I don't have to have this stage. I don't have to have the things. But I know God is doing something here. And I know God has a promise. And God has a place for us. And God has a purpose for each and every one of us here. Each and every one of us here. For you. That's for you. God has purpose for you. We may go through things, we may face things, but you got to understand, you're in his hands. It will happen. The good and the bad. There's going to be good news and there's going to be bad news. There's one part I want to share with you real quick. Keep on playing, guys. There's one part. If I can find it. Said, okay, it's in verse 22. It says, but now I urge you, keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost, only the ship will be destroyed. See, the ship will be destroyed. You can focus on that part, or you can focus on the word right in front of it. Only the ship will be destroyed. Only the ship. The ship may go down, but you're going to make it. We may have to swim to shore. We may have to float on some board to get there, but we're going to make it. See, it depends on what part you focus on. You can focus on the ship going down, or you can focus on the part where only the ship is going down. It may be the ship going down, but we're going to be okay. We're going to make it. That's good news. In my opinion, that's great news, and that's something we should be cheering about and be happy about. Look, I know sometimes things get hard. Sometimes things flat out suck. Don't tell them I said that. Sometimes things just flat out suck. And like I said last week, man, I'm going to talk to you just like I talk to you anywhere else. I don't care if it's in here. We're not churchy. It's not the way we do it. Sometimes it just sucks. But you got to keep your courage. Keep your hope. And fix your focus on Jesus, and we're going to make it. And we're going to make it. We're going to be just fine. So let's get excited. Oh, trying to get me. Let's get excited. Let's be excited about what God's doing, because God wants to transform your life. God wants to transform this county. God wants to transform your friends. He wants to see people rose up from the dead and live. That's exciting. So I'm going to pray over you real quick, and we're going to just play. We're not going to sing. We're just going to play. And if you need prayer, right here, come on down. We'll pray for you. I understand. If you're going through this storm, if this storm is you, if that depression is you, if you're the one that's just went from despair to depression and given up all hope, let me pray over you. Let somebody pray over you. Okay?